Leadership, volunteerism,
future-focused,
networking,
inclusive,
community-built,
inspiring leaders.
What makes the Waterloo region unique in the world? Where did our entrepreneurial resilience come from? How have our chambers of commerce played a key role in our business landscape? Business building community. It's not just a tagline for the chamber. It reflects exactly how this business community came to be, and it anticipates the exciting growth ahead.
When we trace back the history of the Chamber to the earliest days, what you'll find is the community leaders, the politicians, and the business leaders were in fact the same people.
Of course, there was no staff to speak of in those days, so the Board of Trade, then later the Chamber of Commerce, really fulfilled a unique role in terms of driving the values of the community forward. Legislation makes it possible to organize, and that's the other factor. These are, in fact, Dominion charters for the Board of Trade. And it's the existence of new legislation that makes it possible to organize, and that's why they do it. As you look around, you see almost every business leader in the community was at one time or another involved with the Board of Trade and later the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, it's almost impossible to think otherwise. You can't identify a business leader who's not part of the Chamber or the Board of Trade.
Towns were dominated by business people, people who had small businesses, and this is where the Chamber came alive. It intersected with political life, it intersected with the economic life, and it intersected with daily life. Played a role in developing things like the Pioneer Village, trying to get events for the community which would attract visitors, tourism, and tourist activities of the region once it was formed. I think very much came from earlier Chamber initiatives to try to get this community better known throughout Canada.
The Board of Trades were the backbone of the community. Their contributions extended beyond commerce into the quality of life. One such example is Waterloo Park.
Yeah, in the city of Waterloo, the Board of Trade was active in pressing the community once a parks legislation had been passed to create a park for the community, and that is the present Waterloo Park. Wilfrid Laurier University owes its origins really to the Board of Trade, who not only raised the funding to donate land, but held the title to that land and turned it over. Without the Board of Trade, Wilfrid Laurier University would never have been here.
Heading into the war years, the Boards of Trade contributed to a prosperous and progressive community. Business diversity was the plan for the future, but our German heritage would both help and hinder our growth.
During the war years, the Board of Trade was really important in supporting the diversity of business that was in our community during a very challenging period.
One of the leading questions about this community is the diversity of its industry. So even during the Great Depression in the 1930s, the community didn't seem to suffer nearly as badly as many other communities because of the diversity. So there's not a single dominant industry, but a whole range of industries. You begin to say, how is it that there are so many companies here, all of them located in this community, all of them somewhat integrated, but also totally separate one from the other? And one of the really interesting answers isn't in fact found in Canada, it's found in Europe. And the fact that the German states, not Germany, but the German states from which so many people would emigrate, were not unified, and they didn't have a common trading system, but they had a huge number of skilled artisans and craftsmen. But what's fascinating is that they came from a pre-German nationalist state, so their loyalty and their identity was to their hometown. Their real strong identity is with local municipal politics and with the local community and with making it prosper and grow. And their workers had also come from the same background. So you end up with, for Berlin, for Waterloo, and for Woolwich, Elmira, a very common kind of skilled trades and a common identity. And so a Board of Trade and later a Chamber of Commerce is a natural outgrowth for these communities.
Well, after that, in the Kitchener's case particularly, in World War I, the community divided along German, non-German lines. It's hard to even conceive of how hyper-patriotic it was, but when you consider how many people were going off and died, the Chamber plays a very large role in getting the name changed. They argue that it was important that we look patriotic in Berlin-Kitchener. The Depression does hit, but perhaps not quite as badly as in some other communities, because we were in industries that were still fairly strong, the automobile industry being one. We bought more cars at that point. But the kind of companies we had, many of them were family owned, and people took responsibility for their employees. The Chamber, of course, had a close relationship with employees, and they took part in the kinds of things that were necessary in the Depression.
When the soldiers from World War II began to come back to Kitchener, Waterloo, and Woolwich, there was a need to find housing for them. There was also a need to find jobs for them so they didn't go through the terrible industrial unrest after the First World War when there were general strikes across Canada. So the Chamber of Commerce got really involved with organizing and promoting the need for maintaining seniority for workers who had served overseas. Don't forget that war lasted nearly 6 years. So people were out of their job and out of their employment for a long time. And in the beginning, they wanted to ensure that when the men returned, they would have employment and prosperity and housing. So all these communities have a rows of wartime housing, as they were called. The Chamber of Commerce was active in promoting and developing this, although it's funded, of course, by the federal government.
Well, what you'll find at different points, we were furniture capital, a button capital, shoe capital, rubber capital, insurance capital, automotive center, and now eventually a high-tech hub.
When Waterloo businessman Abraham Erb built a log school in 1820, little did he know the area would boom into a world-renowned educational center. The Chambers realized that education was vital to the well-being of the area. They rededicated their efforts in the 1950s. As it had helped Wilfrid Laurier University establish itself, the Chamber was also a catalyst for growth at the University of Waterloo and Conestoga College.
They played a major role with education, not least with the universities. The University of Waterloo was the outgrowth of a business initiative to try and bring higher education in the engineering area to Kitchener-Waterloo. The kinds of companies we had were, to use the language of the period, low-tech. But we already saw that in the future we were going to be a community that required engineers, well-trained engineers, and that's where University of Waterloo came from. It split off from Laurier with Lutheran College then, under the leadership of Jerry Hagee, who came from B.F. Goodrich. And indeed, at the University of Waterloo in the early 1970s, senior administrators often had a background in Goodrich and in business. So the business community and the Chamber played a very major role in the evolution of the educational institutions in this community.
But it's the Chamber of Commerce that really was the spark plug behind pushing for the idea of a common university to which both the Catholic College and the Lutheran College could join.
Similarly, the Chamber continues to partner with all three major educational institutions to this day.
This community helped create the University of Waterloo because of great need for talent and technical knowledge. In turn, the university focused on its excellence and created and developed programs that help grow the economy and talent pool in this region.
We really have struck a very close relationship with the Chamber, and the reason for that is we had students that were really eager to get involved in the community, and in doing so got exposed to the wonderful work of the Chamber.
Every year this Chamber links into the Ontario, links into the Canadian, and puts forward key advocacy issues on behalf of the college system across Canada, which we think is important. It's certainly led to, I think, better funding in the retraining area, certainly in the apprenticeship area. Well, it's just been a consistent partnership. One of the areas the Chamber has helped us dramatically is we were able to get, I think they were a big factor in helping us get degree granting status. They have pushed the agenda federally and provincially for apprenticeship, for funding for retraining, and a whole series of areas that they've made a difference.
The Chamber, as a voice of business, has similar objectives to the university, which is to ensure the prosperity of the community, to grow together. The university, I believe that we have very common interests. We work together for common causes.
The Chamber has been a major contributor and a partner with the university since the inception of the university.
The partnership continues today as satellite campuses flourish in the downtown core.
One of the things that was interesting was the the place of the Waterloo Region in tourism and attracting visitors from outside of this area. And suddenly we realized that we had something really unique, that is the Pennsylvania German / Mennonite / German community itself. And the Chamber of Commerce began recognizing that if you can encourage tourism to come into the community, it brings with it a whole array of benefits at almost no cost to the community.
The Chamber's interest in tourism can be traced back to the 1948 industrial promotional movie, A Conestoga Wagon Stopped Here. It was acclaimed internationally, and suddenly, we were on the map. Tourism gained momentum through the 60s, culminating in the Chamber's sponsorship of Oktoberfest.
As part of a centennial celebration at the Concordia Club, the manager there, Julius Rockfuss, had the idea that they would celebrate as an Oktoberfest and would also demonstrate the multiculturalism base that we had in this community. And we saw this thing at the Concordia Club, and the light bulb went off. It was a natural. We brought together all the German clubs, Bingham and Park, service clubs in the area, and we launched the first Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest. That was in October 1969. And it attracted like 70,000 people. It was a smashing success.
We were looking for something at the time that would match the development in Stratford of the Stratford Festival. And Oktoberfest turned out to be one of those things. It reflected the culture of the community, and at the same time was an annual good time.